To France 24. Today I'm joined by Pita Limjaroenrat, who led the Move Forward party to a surprising win in last year's elections. Mr. Limjaroenrat, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, and greetings from Bangkok.
After the election, you couldn't form a government and you were blocked by the military-appointed senators from becoming prime minister. How did that feel?
I feel proud because I had done everything in my power in order to have the victory in the most sensational election ever in Thai history. The voting turnout was 77%, which is the highest ever. To be clear, I won the election. I formed the coalition and I got blocked by the appointed senators. And because of that, a lot of hopes and dreams of the voters of Thais all around the world, including in Paris, didn't translate into governance here in Thailand. Obviously, it's a roller coaster, but anticipated roller coaster. I knew that it was going to be ups and downs like this, but that's just personal feelings. I think it's much more than just me, because professionally it's a bigger picture. It's a struggle between the power of elected and the power of appointed. Given the history of Thai politics, one could assume that when you enter politics, things like this would happen also.
Since 1932, Thailand has had 12 coups and 20 constitutions. The army is very powerful here, in politics and in bureaucracy. Do you blame the army for stopping you from forming a government?
All the districts that we won, it's very dense and very heavily concentrated by the army camps. So to show you that there's probably a collapse from within, that there's a lot of people who agree with our military reform and voted for us in the ballot.
Now you are on trial for proposing to amend Thailand's majeste law, which is amongst the toughest in the world, carrying a maximum of 15 years in prison. If you were to become prime minister one day, would you still try to amend the majeste law?
So I think lèse majesté law is still an issue here in Thailand. Netflix could be slapped with lèse majesté law just a day or two ago. A comedian is going to be slapped with lèse majesté law. A folk songwriter is going to be, an activist is going to be jailed for 3 years. This happened within 24 hours of this interview. I'm going to find alternatives just to make sure that the goal of keeping the king as revered as possible and above politics does not get used to destroy political opponents.
The Constitutional Court will soon decide whether or not to dissolve your party and ban you from politics for life. Some believe that this is because of your radical choices. Do you feel like you've let down your voters?
No, I think I've tried in every possible way that I could do to find a common ground. We wanted to make sure that the king is revered and above politics. If there's an infringement of freedom of speech, the penalty should be on proportionate. And it should be a balance between the protection of the head of state and the freedom of speech. So that's the kind of equilibrium, and that's the kind of balance that we were trying to do in a nutshell, and nothing more than that. But for the Constitutional Court, appointed by the appointed senators, by the way. We have to get the audience up to speed here that we won the election from through an elected power, and then I got blocked by the appointed senators. The job of the appointed senators is to appoint the Constitutional Court, for them to equate our attempted amendment of a criminal code to insurrection or to treason. That's quite a harsh sentence that we'll fight tooth and nail.
In 2020, thousands of people came out to protest against the government. If you are banned, do you expect the same thing to happen again? And would you participate in such protests?
A lot of people are angry. They could organically, peacefully, assemble for protests for the control of the agenda. If it's organic, that's part of democracy. But systematically, that means politicians systematically organize people in two different color of their shirts, pit people against people to escalate violence. I'm not going to be part of that.
So you grew up in Boston, you attended Harvard. A lot of people seem to believe that your understanding of democracy must have come from America. Is that true?
No, not at all. I went to school in America. I studied public policy at Harvard Kennedy School. The entire class is 50-50. 50 is American, 50 is international. Some from Rwanda, some from Italy, some from France. To the accusation that I'm too Americanized to lead Thailand. I mean, with my last name, Lim, L-I-M, my grandparents came from Hainan, spending some time in Chinatown. Foreign diplomacy then is not about taking sides, whether it's too Americanized or too Chinese or too Russians and things like that. But to find that kind of recalibration and rebalance and think of this as more as an a la carte and not a buffet.
Do you think that Western democratic principles can actually be applied to constitutional monarchy such as here in Thailand?
We look at Nordic countries, if we look at Japan, if we look at Britain, there are different paths of how you develop democracies as a constitutional monarchy in a parliamentary system. Of course, we can look around, but we have to have that kind of democratic principles in our heart and our DNA, that people are equal, that liberty is important, that freedom is important, and develop it from the ground up.
There's a brutal civil war going on in neighboring Myanmar. Thousands of refugees are fleeing to Thailand. What can the Thai government do to resolve the situation?
Not just engaging the military, but also engaging with the NUG, which is the ousted elected government, and as well as the ethnicity groups, because there's so much stakeholders in Myanmar. In order for you to understand the problem and strategize, you have to engage comprehensively and with diversity. Also, you got to work with the frontline states, and that's China and India, because Myanmar is here, Thailand is here, India is here, and China is over here. Inside the Thai government, this goes beyond the Foreign Affairs Ministry. So we need an inter-agency task force led by the Prime Minister himself.
Thailand is marketed as the land of smiles, a place where people are smiling and welcoming. Is that true?
We smile a lot. Depends on what the target market is. If you are incoming from Paris or Lyon to Thailand, you probably see a lot of smiles. But another figure is that the number of suicide per capita in ASEAN Thailand is also the highest. So I think just superficially what you can see during your trips here, compared with that statistics that I just gave you, it might say something, and I'm sure the audience of France 24 can interpret what I mean.
So what do you expect in terms of Western democracies? Do you expect support, for example, from democracies in the European Union?
Well, I appreciate all the European leaders who are following the case of Thailand closely. But what happens here in Thailand does not stop just right here in Thailand, but it's the health of democracy in ASEAN, in Asia, and worldwide. Because this case is not just about me, this case is not just about my party, but this case is about values, it's about democracy.
Your movement was built in a way that was very grassroots. Let's say that the party is dissolved. Mm-hmm. What happens to the movement behind the building of this party that has seen over 14 million voters support your platform?
It could be turbocharged. I mean, if you look at the history, when we started off with the first party, we got 83 seats, and then they dissolved that party. I'm the 2.0, I'm the designated survivor. We got 151 against all odds. So it's a movement. It's not a political party. It's not the house. It's not the infrastructure, but it's the ideology. It's the soul within this house that moves forward together. So anything could happen in the future.
What happens with you? Where will you go next? What will you do? What are your plans?
I'll still be in politics given the situation that allows. I might not be able to run for public office ever in my life. They might strip away my political rights. But if Thailand doesn't want me, I'll try to make myself useful somewhere else, and the world is my oyster. And just to make sure that the dreams that I had in mind, came through, and I think I have made my dent in the universe.
Okay, Mr. Limjaroenrat, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunt.